Hey, I'm gonna do a tutorial today. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna be covering the geometry nodes rendering that I made a couple of days ago, at least in the last week. I just want to cover how I did it, what I used to render, and my render settings, because I know those can be confusing for some people. Let's see how it goes. All right, firstly, I'm just gonna delete these two. Oh yeah, by the way, this is not a video for people who are just now learning Blender. This isn't like a new video. You don't completely need a basis in like all the tools and stuff and everything, but it would be good to go to Blender's channel and check out their tutorial starter series on just how Blender works. The nice thing about geometry nodes is it's non-destructive, so you're not like editing vertices and they're stuck like that forever and then you have to go back and change stuff and later. Let me just, sorry about that. Pretty much what we're gonna do is we're literally just gonna go in and start noding. I'm just gonna create a new window here and we'll go into our geometry node editor. I like to do it all in the layout tab. It's easy, I don't have to go to anything. There is the geometry nodes tab up here. I don't know what any of this stuff does. I suck at Blender, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, but I do know how to make stuff look cool sometimes. So, let's get started. We're just gonna add the geometry nodes in. So firstly here we have our group input, which is taking stuff directly from our mesh. And we have our group output, which is what we see here. We can delete this group input because we're not going from our mesh today. We are going to make an icosphere. So we're going to go mesh primitives, icosphere. You can see it there. And we'll add this in. And this mesh will then go into our geometry. And let's increase the subdivisions to 5. That seems right. Yeah, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna add is an extrusion. And so you can literally just search extrude mesh. We'll plug this directly into our line, and you can see that all of the faces of that icosphere have been extruded as these tiny little triangles. If I set this to 0, then it just becomes our normal thing. You can see them all split apart. Set that back to 1 just for kicks. All right, let's start making this noisy. So we want these sorry, give me a second. We're gonna want all of these like ridges and stuff popping up along here and making these cool little mountains and stuff and all of this. And the way to produce that would be, sorry, I'm using a Mac keyboard. I don't know why. This is a terrible decision. Keep pressing Command, and it's the same as the Windows key. We want all that noise, and to do that, we are going to add, surprise, a noise texture, and that will just get plugged in. This factor button will get plugged into our offset scale. And you can see that it becomes this really rigid thing, not at all like I had the other day. But we can fix that pretty easily. So if we just decrease our scale, once again, this is something you wouldn't be able to do in edit mode. You can see we get a little bit smoother. But what I really want is I want an icosphere. So let's just take this. I want this with all of that noise coming out of it. So I'm gonna want these coming out. I don't want like this weird like ball of stuff and it's just surrounding this, because I want to be able to have something underneath this that signifies that, oh, this is something that's extruding. So, oh yeah, here's another useful tool. We're gonna want to keep that icosphere here, but this group output can only take in one input at a time. So what I'm going to use is the join geometry tool. all of these green boxes are geometry nodes, pretty much. Like these specifically are geometry nodes. But using this tool, I can combine these two, and where I wouldn't have been able to before, I can now have both. I'm going to turn this off normalize, I'll explain that in a second. I can have both my original icosphere here, and then I have all these coming off, etc. So this normalize feature is very, very nice. So of course I could have this, but then you don't see our original sphere. Normalize pretty much just keeps your noise texture, everything above 0. So this is going into our offset scale, and let me unplug this a quick second so I can show you. If I go into like a negative number, it now becomes so small that it either can go through to the other side of our mesh, etc. So you can see this is right here is going to be our original, just normal icosphere. Let me grab this and bring it down here so that it makes more sense. And then we've got our noise texture, which leads into it. When I normalize that, it's going to make it so that things can be less than 0. I mean, when it's normalized, it literally says it right there. Yeah, but it's 0 to 1. If I take this off, I then get these pretty much like mountainous ridges, you could say. I'm going to increase the subdivisions here, which both increases for everything, something you wouldn't be able to do. But yeah, that adds another level of detail without me having to scale anything at all. So now our noise texture is here. I want to make this a little bit smoother, so I'm gonna decrease the scale, and I'm gonna set this to 4D. So what 4D does, it allows us to kind of like scroll the noise. So imagine like noise is like a big plane of like all these dots and stuff. This W modifier allows it to scroll. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to set that back to 0. I want this to move with when we're playing our rendering, which I will set to 1000 frames so that I'm not having to repeat stuff all the time. It's a pain in the ass. There we go. So that's going to go for a little while. But I want this to move in accordance to that. So what I can do is I can add a scene time modifier, and I can plug my seconds into the W modifier. And that's going to give us this cool wavy texture. It's really nice. What I can also do is I can add a math node, which then takes our seconds that are going, and I can divide here. So when I divide by 0.5, it'll take it like that. But if I take it up to, I see we could even just do 5. That looks fine. I like the way that that looks. If you wanted to mess with this more, you can. Of course, it's up to you. Blender is freedom. But yeah. So now we've got this. And let's just start going into some of the render settings now. For the first thing, I'm going to use cycles. I like cycles. I like the way that it looks. I prefer it over Eevee. I don't have much experience with Eevee. And if you have a GPU, I have an RTX 4070 Ti. You're going to want to set it to GPU compute because it'll make it render just that much faster. Like I'm getting a full 24 FPS where I wouldn't have been able to do that on my CPU. But something to know is for a rendering, you don't ever need your noise threshold at 0.01 or your max samples at 4096. That's far too much. You can set it to 0.5, which is what I always render in, and 100 is your max samples, and it'll look almost the exact same. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit of texturing. The first thing I want to do is I'm just gonna remove this world thing because there's not one at all. I don't like the gray. I just like it to be completely dark. And then I'm going to add a light point, grab it, bring it up, grab it, and move it Shift Z. That allows you to move along anything but the Z axis. I'm gonna do, that seems fine. That seems like enough light. Okay. Oh shoot, don't need that. I keep drawing and I keep forgetting to unselect. Okay, so now we wanna shade this up a little bit. I'm going to add a camera. And what I can also do is I can align that to my view. I don't have to move it along. Align active camera to view. And there, my scene is already framed. That's pretty good. I think this light could be brighter. We can always, of course, change that later. But let's just increase that to 200 watts. 50. 200 is pretty bright. Heck, 20. Okay. So now I want to add some materials. And what I literally do is I will go and I will press Shift A, type material, and I have this. I'm going to use 2 of these because I want the original ecosphere right here to be different than these outputs. I chose the wrong thing. Set material. Sorry, that's the geometry type. And I'm going to Shift duplicate that again. Blender will automatically move things out of the way for you if they're too close, which is nice. So now I'm going to go to materials here. I want 2 materials right now. So firstly, I'm going to create my like metal ball material because I want this to be like a metal ball with these spikes of light jutting out. And I'm partial to the blue and red color scheme. You can literally do whatever you want. Purple and yellow. It's whatever. But we're going to make this a little bit metallic. Let me make sure I've got my cycles yet. Yeah, you can see all those little grains. The 4070 Ti is really pulling its weight, so it's pretty great. Yeah, we'll bring up the metallic. And of course you have to set the material to be able to see it. But yeah, that's already looking pretty good. I'm not going to shade smooth because I like the way that the triangles will poke out of it. I might decrease the roughness a little. Not too much. That's probably fine. We don't need that too much darker. I like the way that that metal looks. Alright, we're going to add a new material. Click new material again. And I want this to be our emission. So I'm going to go with the blue first, and then later in the video I'll show how to do the 2 like mixing extrusions. But let me bring this down. We don't need this exactly right now. Let's go like a nice, I feel like a nice like almost like a light blue always looks pretty good. And let me see what I have the strength. Let me think about what I have the strength set to. Sorry, give me a second. Let's go like 4 or 5. And of course we have to be able to set the material to see it. That's what this does. So we're going to set it to our second material. And we already have our glowing thing ball. That looks really good already. Actually, I'm really liking these little things. Are like the way that it just interacts with the surface of that. That looks so cool to me. Yeah, but now if I were to press play, let me go back here so that we actually get frames. But yeah, we get our thing there, and it just moves across it. It's pretty sick. I like this a lot. Let's go to our render settings again. So when I output, I like to go to 4K because I'm insane. You're gonna want to save. I'll just save this as an FFmpeg video. And I'll save it to my desktop. But what's really nice about this is there's also this option for EXR. People argue whether you should render in like sets of images and then compile them later. I don't really have problems with like my renderings getting canceled or anything because my PC is set up. If you're doing something on your laptop and you're not charged, you might want to, especially for longer stuff, you might want to go ahead and render as sets of images, and you can compile them later. Also in Blender, there's plenty of tutorials out there about how to do that. EXR looks good for smoke sims. I don't really know a whole ton about that, I'm gonna be honest. But for my encoding, I'm gonna go MPG4 and let's do just frame 1 to 50. It's gonna be a very short render, but yeah, let me just make sure. Let's go 0.7. But yeah, and 50. What's really nice is you can set this to 50, you can set it to 100. When you have a 0.5, it'll always go to 32 before it starts denoising. So it'll set that threshold and then it'll pretty much just stop taking samples. But let's render our animation, and in a second I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so I have finished the render. It was pretty quick. I did change it to 1080p because I do want to save time on this. When you change it to 4K, it can pretty much double your render times because you're rendering almost like quadruple the pixels. I'm not sure how the math works. I don't really care. Let's view the render and we'll see how it looks. So we can go view animation, and that looks pretty cool. I like the way that looks. That'll go for 1,000 frames, of course. So yeah. Now let's look at how to add the second modifier. So what we're gonna do, I'm just gonna select these. Control Z. I can just do that. I'm a fool. And I'm gonna duplicate those up here. Give me a second. Sorry. Just trying to make this layout a little bit more sensible. So of course we have our scene time. Sorry, let me make this actually visible too. Something Blender is not good at. Okay, so we've got our scene time, our division, noise texture, extrusion, set material. And we'll just throw this back into the join geometry. We'll get the exact same thing that we had before because it's the exact same stuff. But I want to add another material. I'm going for the red. Again, I'm making the exact same video that I made the other day. So we'll do this. And we will... Let's see what that does. Nope, that was useless. Sorry, give me a second. Yeah, we'll just recreate this. The only thing I changed was the color of the emission and the strength. So I can do that here. I like to have it match. Like I said, I like the numbers. Emission strength 4. Let me go to the rendered view because it makes a lot more sense. And let's go to like a reddish orange. And now you see it's got the same thing as it was before, and that's because we have it in the same position. It's the same noise texture that was used. But if I add another math node, and just throw it in there, and I'm just adding frames, I'll add 100, and I'll set the material to there, material 2, and it's not appearing because I'm a fool. I just don't know what I did wrong. Oh, there's what we did wrong. We don't even have a modifier going into this. So let me just set that value back to 0, and you're going to see what it's going to look like when you do it correctly. So you get this like weird purple hue, and that's literally because you have these same triangles interacting with each other. You see those like weird lines and such. Sorry, let me make this make sense. But yeah, you can see like there's Z fighting right there. So in this situation, we would want to offset that. That's why I added this noise modifier. And I'll just increase this by 20. And now we're done. This is exactly what you get when you do what I did. I think all of these modifiers are in earlier versions of Blender that have geometry nodes. I'm using simplistic stuff right here. But yeah, that's the end of the tutorial. We'll go back over the render settings real quick. So remember, you can output at whatever these are. You know, you got your 4K, you got your 1080p. You can change your aspect ratios. If 24 frames a second is fine. You can set it to 60, but then you might have to increase your division right here because it'll look jumpy. Here, I can set it to 60 actually, and I'll show you. Go back to the start. It's literally showing at 39 frames per second. It does have trouble calculating some of this just because there's so many verts right there that it needs to learn. 1,000. Yeah, but this is 38 frames per second. It'll be moving at double the speed. Wait. No, it won't be. Because it's set to seconds. So it'll move at the same speed no matter what. I'm an idiot. Yeah, so if I suddenly decide to set this to 24, it'll be going the same speed. Which is super nice. I like to render in 4K. I like to render at 24 FPS. Like I said, this is what I had it when I did the quick render. That took about a minute. It was about 9 seconds per image. You can set this to 0.5 and set your max samples to 50. You'll be good to go. You don't have to calculate all of these light paths. I'm fine with it. It doesn't increase time terribly. That's